You've been listening to How Do You Say This Band's Name Radio. That was Hosier, or is it Hoshier? Hoshier? Anyways, this is Parquest Courts. Parquest Courts is a post-punk band from New York with 7 studio albums to date, but today we will be focusing on, by far their most popular, the angry and artsy Wide Awake. This album is about being woke to problems and fighting the powers that oppress the masses. Let's spin this record and analyze it to high heaven. The opening track, Total Football, is an intense call to action using football analogies, asking people to work together in order to take down the powers that oppress minorities and keep the large in charge. The opening line really emphasizes the mission statement of this album, to bring energy, sound, and hot debates. After mentioning the electricity that powers their opinions, they're fully ready to take down the oppressors. First, Savage starts with belittling his opponent, and then he calls on anyone who is mistreated in society, stating that people together will be stronger than the sum of their parts. Parquest Courts are anti-everything they were taught by consumerism, and they keep their head high, speaking out. The line about footloose fluidity is about Marxist principles, as is Total Football, the track's namesake. Both are tactics that use fluidity and equality instead of specialization. To be honest, before this show, I thought this song was just about soccer. Another chorus calls on more workers and encourages the community. The bridge carries this song into its ending, calling out their influences and kicking off the album. And then, of course, the infamous line, F Tom Brady, which isn't about the man, but instead the idea of the perfect American man. Okay, violence is a lot. This is a very angry, loaded song with heavy political themes, and it really lays it all out in front of you. I'll do my best to explain it, but I feel like you yourself should dive deeper into this song. Now, here's Violence, the second track, off of Wide Awake. Violence starts off with a 70s inspired instrumental, with Savage coming in with angry spoken word lyrics. He begins to contrast nature with our society, saying that violence is entrenched in humanity, and it's what people resort to when they don't understand something. Then comes my favorite lyric in the entire album. Why are there no folk songs about ATM machines that produce the likeness of the blazer of the Trail of Tears? This lyric touches on Andrew Jackson's signing of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which, as the name states, pursued the government to forcefully remove the Native Americans from their rightful land, and the fact that his face is still on the $20 American bill, one that comes out of ATM machines. The chorus has a repetition of violence's daily life, while in the lyrics between the refrain touch on police brutality and excessive uses of force that end up displayed for everyone to see, sometimes even shown as spectacles. After a brief interlude, we are sent back into the scathing spoken word passages, now touching on the savagery of humans and the gun violence affecting their country. The lead singer finds it important to talk about how his name, Adam Savage, directly reflects the race he is a part of, and criticizes people not for their action, but for their inaction. This includes the government, who will label rightful protests as riots and push them aside, saying that they are the violent few that we should pay attention to. As they state, riot is a word used to delegitimize your unrest. The chorus repeats again, and Adam finishes with this. Much like the air you breathe and the water you drink, violence is so omnipresent, so ingrained in your daily reality, you forget to notice it happens every day. Okay, so that was Violence, track 2 on Wide Awake. Now on to the somber, Before the Water Gets Too High. An odd digital sound lays down chords over a bass line and guitar riff that introduces the main idea of this song, a large rise until a quick fall that leaves us back where we started. This makes sense, seeing as the name of the song talks of water rising, and the main ideas of the lyrics talk about how if we drink too much water, or use too much money, new rivers or cracks in the economy will build, until even the rich start to suffer. Savage begins the song pushing off the idea of the world ending, stating that he shudders at the idea, so he would rather not think about it. This is instantly contrasted with him asking questions that all add up to, who gets to be the last person? Who gets the last laugh on humanity? He states many things that could end the world, like a war, climate change, or general inaction from the government. Talks about how state TV will broadcast information that will be no help to us if the streets are flooded and everyone ends up living in tents anyway, and how they will be among us soon enough if the water gets too high. During the pre-chorus, we see Adam singing higher and higher, only to restart after every line. In this section, his voice represents the water that will eventually destroy our world to start anew. Eventually, we will be at a point of no return, as stated in the eponymous chorus. In the second verse, our ability to sway government opinion is truly put into question, because if the world ends, what were all of our protests for? Where did all of our power as people disappear? The commentary shifts to corporations and how their drinking of water is spilling into new rivers, ones that will cause the flood at the end of the world. I believe this to be Adam Savage being incredibly smart, making an allusion to Noah's Ark in the book of Genesis in the Bible. While God caused that flood, now the people in power, that being corporations and the governments, are the ones causing the second flood. Unfortunately, no one will be there to build an ark in time, for the poor people have no power in today's society, and for powers to build an ark, they would have to realize that they are the problem. But they would never do that. It loses them money. So the water will go higher and higher, like Adam Savage's repetition of the refrain, in which he reaches a whole major fifth up and falls back down again. Everything will get worse, until even the rich are refugees. Mardi Gras Beads is a straight-up love song, which is nice because I'm getting tired from all this big political commentary. The song is bittersweet, singing of lyrics recited by partners, remembering goodbyes more than hellos, and not knowing if he should leave or not. It's not too complex of a song, but with the romantic sounds of the song, it masks the depth. It swells up with strings in the background, swinging back and forth between loving and leaving. Adam's normally harsh voice softly sings over this amazing track, leading to an amazing arrangement, with stellar production from Danger Mouse. His faith in the relationship deteriorates, with white paint chipping off his celebratory and religious beads. Still, his partner stays with him, getting him up in the morning, which makes him feel worse for not loving them like he used to. He doesn't want to modulate to a minor key or end the relationship, though a minor chord plays over that line, showing that the relationship still ends eventually. Then, all the final paint chips off, and his love breaks down. You've been listening to I Still Can't Pronounce This Band's Name Radio. You just heard Chumbawamba, now here's Parakeet Courts. We just went from the opening track Total Football to Mardi Gras Beads, where we got introduced to the themes of anger against the state of the world and the struggles of finding love in a messed up climate. Now, let's go with the two-parter, Almost Had to Start a Fight / In and Out of Patience. Two punky tracks with fast guitars, helpless vocals, and lyrics about trying to navigate life. Almost Had to Start a Fight starts loud and quickly, with Adam Savage screaming about being uncomfortable with people getting close to him and how he's getting tired of staying docile. Stuff is piling up on him too fast to the point where he might resort to violence. He's stuck in the heat of the ever-speeding present, unable to adapt and being sucked further and further into a void of anxiety, which is shown greatly in his quick and repeated delivery of each line. He finds no reason to look for normalcy anymore in a world now dominated by chaos and eclipsed by tension. The third verse hits hard as he talks about the desensitization of violence and how he feels numb to death. We'll circle back to that topic on the 8th track, Normalization. He's trying to calm down, see if there's any peace left in this world, but he's also just trying to find like-minded people that can rise up with him against the people causing harm to the common folk. Then the chorus repeats and jumps into the second half, In and Out of Patience. The themes are continued to the point where Savage wouldn't believe that it was real if the chaos and harm were to stop. It would all be a bad dream in his head. He's running out of patience not only with the people around him causing the tension that dominates these songs, but also with the people who won't do anything about it. The world doesn't just need to recognize what is wrong, we need to actually fix it. He also talks about how his phone and access to all the information of the bad things happening isn't helping, and his attitude is deteriorating. The second verse has Adam talk about his patience for life, running thin, and then his patience for the transit system in New York. The MTA system has become run down, mismanaged, and everything is going slower than me getting out of the bed in the morning, leading to delays, which leads to frustration against the people in power once more. If everything stops, if Savage dies, he's counting on the rest of us to liberate the oppressed. This next one's called Freebird 2, a song about surviving dysfunction while growing up, but not letting it define you. It was written about Adam Savage's childhood, and the song is directed at his mother, one that was filled with, quote, addiction, turmoil, incarceration, and mental instability. About the first lines, Savage said, I was ready to move past the veneer of punk. That summer my mother was incarcerated. Rules were more lax around the house. My father was working and I stayed out late. I came and went as I pleased. I was a young guy who was angry at the world, angry that my mom was in jail, just bitter and resentful towards other kids who had normal lives. He wants to move past that time in his life, now taking up painting, which he does all the album covers, and of course, making this music. The next few lines are directed to his mother, talking about how her substance led him to do the same, and how the distaste for her led him to see calling someone mom as not a name, but instead a duty that the mother must uphold, and his did not uphold that incredibly well. He uses the metaphor of a snake charmer and a snake, the charmer keeping him, the snake, in a basket of his vices, which leads him to his detriment. The charmer originally wasn't a drug. It was, in fact, his mother. As he looks in the mirror, he not only sees himself, but how he looks like his mom, how she influenced his memories and ideals, how she is the basis of what he is today. Every step he may take, it leads him right back to where he came from. And this is where the song really loops back in on itself, because it could not just be about his mother, but looking back on the lyrics, it could also be about America, his country, with lines like, the first name I call you is not a name at all, more of a duty than a function, about how his country, his home, is not just where he lives, but where he's governed. Like a serpent charmer negotiating harm, I live with a basket of your silence. He conforms to these values in order to stay in society, a place that has become more and more detrimental to people, much like a drug. The last lines being, I feel free, like you promised I'd be. The next song begs the question, what is normal, and how is it influenced by the opinions of people in power? Does skepticism really work anymore in a place where information could be manipulated at any time? When faced with the decision, is it really us that does the thinking, or do other people tell you what to think? It's something that we need to start paying more attention to, and ensure we are keeping our personal values close. This is what normalization is all about. The chorus of this song asks us, what are we truly thinking, and how far are we willing to go for conformity? Savage tries to take back control in the second verse, saying that nothing must be normal and everything should be thought of individually, to be skeptical of anything that happens. But then we realize that maybe even the things we're asking questions about might not even be true enough to understand. The final verse gives us a grim reality check, saying we might be no more than robots, unable to think for ourselves anymore, or pass the Turing test. Though, he brushes it off because ignorance is bliss. We like to think that we're autonomous, but maybe that's just what they want us to believe. Back to Earth is a song about death, recounting memories and lessons this character has learned through their trip across life. This is accompanied by a haunting instrumental that I can't tell if I'm supposed to groove to or be wary of. This dead man seemed to have lived enough to be healthy, to feel human, but the fear of capitalism still got to him, not allowing his full potential. Looking back on his life, he realizes that the thoughts he had weren't because of a soul, but once again, like on normalization, it was just thoughts planted by people above him. Sees the only thing that mattered to him after the death was the love he experienced, and how love is the one thing keeping us from fate. After seeing his memories, the ghost learns how to live with the fact that he did make mistakes, but he must accept that he can't live twice, so he can sit down and watch the rest of the world spin around him, relearn how to relax. The chorus brings a happier tone once again to this bittersweet track, until he's back talking about the failures of society. He states that he's been around the world twice, which I believe means he's lived and now relived in this ghost-like state. with the hindsight of an entire life, he can see that even the living aren't truly alive. Their bodies being used to grow the true living entity, consumerism. He once again urges us to love before we die, and I urge you to love whenever you can. Welcome back to Okay, I finally figured out how to pronounce the band's name Radio. You just heard King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Now, here's Parquest. We're back in New York with the art punk band on their 6th album, Wide Awake, in which they tell stories of death, hopelessness, love, and political corruption. In the last show, we went from almost had to start a fight and in and out of patience to back to earth. Now we're finishing off the track list, starting with the funky self-titled song, Wide Awake. Wide Awake is a sarcastic look on wokeness and allyship, especially from upper-class white people that detract from the experiences of the discriminated against in order to make themselves look better. His brain never pushing the brakes may allude to the progress that it's making, and his mind looking forward to a progressive future. The irony being that someone who's truly progressive and had been from the start would have arrived at their destination already, and wouldn't be talking about how far they've been going. This form of wokeness is, to this man, more realization than a state of being, with lines like, eyes so open that my vision is as sharp as a blade, with open eyes being a common metaphor for a revelation, and having sharp eyes implies having a knack for criticism, something that woke individuals must engage in. Sharp vision in this case can refer to the woke individual's need to cut open all that he sees, looking for flaws and vulnerabilities in the societal structure. Spreading wokeness is also a form of superiority in the sense that, to them, well, it should be common knowledge that the woke individual is better, smarter than the uneducated, when earlier in the song they already stated that they needed their eyes to be open themselves. The song repeats identically after the first half. On to the lightning fast New York City observation, again with criticisms of capitalism and a whole lot of anger, as well as the desensitization of poverty in his area. Being in the New York music scene, Savage says he's living in proximity of $1. He might not have wealth, but the people around him sure do. The next few lines describe someone feeling weak, needing something more to life. An obvious answer would come from back to earth, looking for love whenever you can. But the adage of something you can't buy in a store makes me feel like this is a double meaning, of love and of drugs. This fictional person is a citizen of New York, a city with a large homeless population. This person talks loud and spouts their beliefs so the people under them can't talk. This falls in line with the theme of Wide Awake as well, how wokeness can actually detract from a movement. The third verse talks about multiple overdoses caused by poor treatment of drugs in the area, which is why I want to stop now and say, please, go support your local harm reduction group. If you can, donate or volunteer, but not, even spreading the word can help save so many lives. Okay, PSA done. Now back to the other PSA. New York City observation was quick, so on to track 11. Extinction is playing next, a hopeful song about self-examination and improvement in 3 quick, punky parts. He starts his journey by... smacked the microphone. He starts his journey by looking at himself, seeing a flawed man who can't distinguish between reality and fiction anymore. He's turned narcissistic and almost psychopathic, but he knows what he must do. Part 2 starts with the little things, cooking a healthy dinner, finding companionship in his cat, and realizing he doesn't feel fulfilled by drugs. He sees that his past art was written from a place of turmoil, that it doesn't need to be anymore. Part 3 is represented by spring. It's no longer cold outside, so he looks out his window, takes a walk, and thinks about all the things he can do next. Very wholesome. He sees the mask he's left behind, one of a tortured soul, but really he was lying to himself. Because it's easier to lie to yourself than to do something about it. After that wholesome song, we have Death Will Bring Change, a song sung this time by Austin Brown, the bassist, and the New York City School of Rock Children's Choir. This was written about the loss of his sister in a car crash and how it affected him and his family. Before he lost his sister, Austin could coast through life, not completely understanding everything there is to it, living selfishly but finding peace in it. He also saw a bright future for himself and others, a potential to be untapped. But, always, death brings change. It can be a real reality check, and it seems Austin agrees with this, with the choir repeating the title of the song after every passage. He sees his potential now as stuck in the bottom of a well, one rich with the coins of life, yet unreachable. He's stuck in this well too, but unable to grab those coins and unable to move at all. He's anchored in place, forced to reflect on the horrors of mortality. He was sure of his health before the crash, but now, who's to say? Anything could happen. Optimism sandwiches the record, from Total Football being upbeat hardcore, and now the final track, the dance punk Tenderness. The world used to move slowly. In the age of stone and copper, people were tender. Now we speed past anything. A casual stroll has turned into a sprint, but we have developed deeper love for each other, and that is what can slow us back down, make us tender again. Through dancing with a partner, we can reflect on what truly matters to us, the movement of humans, not of trains or cars. He has escaped the nihilism of society and now can truly live in harmony with himself and others. Harmony with the world can be found not by traveling, but by simply enjoying where you are today. To find harmony with your friends, share information, pollinate them. Consumerism will still be there, but we know it can't have a true stranglehold on us. We can't always live up to everyone's expectations, but if you live up to yours, you'll find peace. Savage and the rest of PC is making this music for us, knowing someone might hate it, but now believing to him that it is truly good. And that's all that matters. Thank you so much for tuning in to Nobody's Listening.